Madam President, I'm going to speak a little bit first about an amendment that I hope is both non-controversial and one that creates jobs. And then when one of my colleagues on the other side of the floor is present, I'll ask for a unanimous consent request. But I'll start off by speaking on the amendment. I want to speak about Amendment 4064, which would create more than 40,000 new jobs. It would help revitalize Main Street and some of the economically hardest hit communities all around the country, and at no cost to the taxpayer. No cost to the taxpayer. Now, we've been talking a lot about the financial crisis and how to prevent the next one, and that is obviously very important. It is essential work. But one thing we can't lose sight of is the devastating impact this crisis has had on small businesses and economic development in our local neighborhoods and communities. I, like many in this chamber, have watched in frustration as the ranks of the unemployed rose to 15 million people and the unemployment rate increased to nearly 10%. I, like many of you, have watched in frustration as small businesses shut their doors, unable to get the credit they needed to keep the lights on. The problem is that the big banks, the same banks who took billions upon billions of dollars in TARP funds, are not making loans to small businesses. According to a just-released report by the Congressional Oversight Panel, Wall Street's largest banks reduced their small business loan portfolios between 2008 and 2009 by more than double the overall drop in lending. Let me read you the conclusion of that report. It said, quote, "Small business credit remains severely constricted. Unable to find credit, many small businesses have had to shut their doors, and some of the survivors are still struggling to find adequate financing," close quote. So despite all of our efforts to restore liquidity in banks, they refuse to hold up their end of the bargain and are not lending to small businesses. Now, we know small businesses are the engines of growth. More than 99% of American businesses employ 500 or fewer employees, and together these companies employ half of the private workforce and create 2 of every 3 new jobs. So the question throughout this recession has always been, how can small business get the credit they need not only to keep the lights on, but to grow and create jobs to get the economy humming again? Today, we are showing signs of improvement. We have stopped job losses from 750,000 jobs to over 260,000 jobs created last month. The economy is recovering, but there are still millions of people who don't have work, people who expect us to do something to help them. I believe in this bill that we are passing, it's essential to an economic recovery. In making our banking system more secure and stable, we are directing banks to focus on the core business of lending and extending credit rather than the reckless casino speculation that brought us to this recession. But we can also do something that is more direct and more immediate to help jumpstart more job growth. We can invest directly in small business and local communities by supporting community development financial institutions, or as they are called, CDFIs. Based on what we know about this community from its historic performance, the amendment that I'm proposing will create approximately 40,000 new jobs by authorizing the government to guarantee bonds issued by qualified CDFIs for community and economic development loans. And best of all, there are no pay-go implications. As their name implies, the primary mission of community development financial institutions is to foster economic and community development in underserved areas. They have a proven track record of job creation and are arguably the most effective way to infuse capital in underserved areas for community and economic development. CDFIs leverage public and private dollars to support economic development projects such as job training clinics, startup loans for small businesses in areas full of potential but desperate for development. CDFIs have been hit hard by the recession because they've had to rely on the big banks for the capital, and as we've seen, that capital is neither affordable nor accessible. Now, I'm proud to have bipartisan support on this amendment. Senator Snowe is a co-sponsor, as are Senators Johnson, Leahy, and Schumer. And I want to say to all of our co-sponsors, we thank you for your support. The idea is simple. If big banks don't care about lending to small business and communities in need of capital, then we should empower the very organizations who do care, who make it their mission every day to rebuild main streets across this country, and who are ready and willing to do even more if they only have the resources and tools to meet the growing demand. So I ask all of us in this chamber, do we want to go home to our states and tell the folks on Main Street that no, you didn't think that they deserve the loan guarantees that won't cost taxpayers $1 but would create more than 40,000 new jobs? I certainly don't think so. We've talked a lot about protecting Main Street from Wall Street here in the last few weeks, but we haven't talked about doing anything directly to benefit Main Street. Here's our chance. Again, we know that the big banks have dried up their lending to small businesses. We know small businesses are the engine of economic growth. I'm proposing an amendment that would not wait around for the big banks to start lending again while more Main Street businesses continue to struggle to meet payroll. I'm proposing an amendment that would give our communities the guarantees they need to get lending started again, to put money into our engines of job growth, and all without any pay-go implications, without any cost to the federal taxpayers. And so I urge my colleagues to join us in supporting this important amendment and to help small businesses create jobs on Main Street. I appreciate that Senator Snowe, Senator Johnson, and others, Senator Schumer, have joined us on this effort. And having seen now that the distinguished ranking member of the Banking Committee is now on the floor, I ask unanimous consent to set aside the pending amendment and call up my amendment 4064, which is the CDFI amendment, and ask unanimous consent for a vote on this amendment prior to the cloture vote.
Is there objection?
I object.
Objection is heard.
Madam President, I regret that my dear friend and colleague from Alabama has the need to object. This is an opportunity, a bipartisan amendment, an opportunity to help Main Street and small businesses, an opportunity to create 40,000 jobs, an opportunity to do it without cost to the taxpayers, an opportunity to do it with a organizations, CDFIs, that have a proven track record, an opportunity to lend into Main Street because big banks aren't doing it. We all talk about lamenting the lack of job growth. We all talk about lamenting the access to capital. This would be a tremendous opportunity to do that. So I do hope that I can work with Senator Dodd and Senator Shelby to get this in order prior to a cloture vote, or hopefully, if we don't achieve that, to be able to get this in any manager's amendment. I think it's bipartisan. It creates jobs. It doesn't call the taxpayers any money. I don't know how much more you can come to the floor and offer that should have bipartisan support than an effort like that. With that, Madam President, I yield the floor.